a recap of a story we covered last week. As things are always developing with the COVID-19 situation, things change pretty much daily, especially as vaccines are coming out,
Mm-hmm.
new administration, new policies. So things are looking up in some areas, and in other areas, I would say things are looking confusing. Yeah, do you
I would
like
agree.
that? Do you like that?
Yeah, that's
Because last week we discussed how LA has become like a epicenter of coronavirus worldwide, one of the worst areas,
mm-hmm.
if not the worst. I actually found out that Portugal has become like worse per capita.
Yeah.
Um, but Los Angeles is still like an epicenter, and we've got like more than 300 deaths a day minimum. Our hospitals are filled up in our area, and so to us, it's very shocking that Governor Newsom came out and decided to lift the statewide stay-at-home orders. Um, of course, as a headline, that can be extremely shocking, extremely confusing. But that's when you have to get into the discussion of federal, laws and versus the state laws versus the county laws and stuff.
Yeah.
Um, so I have to say, in some areas, it does make sense why they would do this, and it's in some areas it's really, really frightening because we did have one of the best lockdowns, and then we removed it. Some would say a little early,
I
and
would say.
yeah, and then here we are again where we had a lockdown that was definitely not as strong, a lot less people following orders, a lot less businesses following orders, and now we're going into another no lockdown period. So why? Let's talk about why they did that. Unless you have something to say before.
No, go ahead.
Yeah,
That's good.
so
You're saying what I would say, so.
cool. So the main reason for the lockdowns, the main stat that they looked at, the main data point would be ICU projections. What that is how many how available their ICU is like today, this week, and how it's going to look in a month, how it's going to look in 2 months, in a few weeks. So actually, what they were looking at for this exact decision was the ICU projections in February. So they think in February, in certain areas, it'll get better. But when you talk about what they think is better, it's like, oh, the Bay Area has gone from 10% availability to 15%. So now we can reopen. Sacramento's gone from 10% to like 25%
Mm.
availability. And of course, LA, SoCal, Orange County, these places are pretty much still at 0%,
Yeah.
pretty much still at like 5%, like awful, awful numbers.
Yeah.
Um,
So I guess really the question is like, is that the right system to use to monitor whether or not there should be a lockdown?
um, of course, you can say, well, you can answer both ways. You can say that, of course, it's going to be easier for the counties to decide laws more specific for their county and things like that. But I think the great thing about federalism and having a unified state government to, gather all of these different areas is to have the strong fists to have the national policy, even though it's a state, right? The same thing with the country. We need at least national guidelines for each state to follow, for each county to follow, so we at least have some form of uniformity.
Yeah.
Because that's the one thing that screwed us this entire time, right? Like we have one city doing
One thing.
amazing, the next, like I'll drive over. Like it was happening with New York. People would drive from New York to New Jersey or just to have a different lockdown law. So of course it is better, but it's better that they have more autonomy to decide what they want for their area. But also it's going to be more dangerous in the long term if they're unable to like unify.
Do you think that some of this comes from the political pressure that Gavin Newsom is facing regarding the
Oh,
lockdown?
I've never seen anybody face so much political pressure.
Yeah.
The recall campaigns have been, you know, steaming for like a few years now,
Yeah.
but since the pandemic, they've really had like their charge, their cause, their thesis of this guy is stealing our jobs, he's locking us down, he's not helping us, he's only giving money to his donors,
Uh-huh.
he's having these wine parties and things like that.
Wine parties.
Something that I've eventually kind of saw the okayness of, but some of these causes are now starting to offend the left because the left is for lockdown, they're for the stimulus, they're for all these things, and Gavin Newsom seems to just be in favor of reopening, opening schools, getting back to business as usual, without doing the work that and this is what some people are saying. They actually released stimulus checks. California $600 stimulus checks. They're doing that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gavin Newsom announced that, which is something that I'm like, okay, so you are still giving things to the left, and you're working to like do it all.
Well, he's in a very interesting spot because, you know, he's easily the most powerful governor in the country, right? Being the governor of California.
For sure. I would even say that like just with like the media hype around his name.
Yeah.
He can capitalize off of that.
Yeah. But he's like not very well liked here, even by leftists. And I think it's interesting, you know, from a political perspective to see the decisions that he makes, because he's dealing with a predominantly like we're predominantly liberal here in California.
Yeah.
Yet there is a very vocal, very strong minority here that is conservative, that wants certain things, demands certain things, you know, does things like recall Newsom campaigns.
And has a semblance of power.
Oh,
like
yeah, some power.
Political, economic, just cultural power within like communities and stuff.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting, like just as much as I find it interesting what Biden's doing right now, like I think it's a similar level of interesting that the state politics around Newsom and the actions he's taking regarding COVID-19, because it's such a controversial like area of
everything he does someone can complain about, right?
Yeah.
And especially when the situation has gotten so out of hand, every single thing is going to be an issue. Like people are expecting Biden to be able to snap COVID away. Of course, like it's kind of become like a joke, you know, expecting him to be able to wish it away. But
I am Iron Man.
Those demands are unrealistic. And when people say we're in for like a dark winter, that's real. Like we aren't going to see hope until we get like massive vaccine rollout. We're not going to see hope until we see the other side of this, which we will see. Like it is a real thing, but we aren't there yet.
Yeah,
it's beginning.
Yeah, so I guess then the question is, you know, how long does this do we stay open under this specific parameter? Like, are we gonna is there gonna be another lockdown? Are we gonna?
I hope not. Like, you know, like I hope not. But even saying that, I know it's like.
How about the boys back there? You got any opinions?
Considering we are doing the worst in preventing COVID cases almost in the entire world, I think maybe opening up isn't the best idea.
That's
Yep.
Very well put.
I think Jack Tarman can join me in on this consensus. We deliver pizza. And,
I'm in there too.
There's people who don't even care about their families when they're in their own home.
Yeah.
So God forbid they go outside.
Yeah.
So, you know, it always just comes down to the one man, the one woman who choose to put other people's lives ahead of their own, or whatever.
Behind their
whatever.
own.
No, in front of their own. I mean, when they put the mask on, they're not thinking about, oh, I'm wearing this to protect myself.
Oh, you're talking about the good individual.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's me. Sorry. I wear the mask so that I can't get other people sick, because that's what the science has proved.
Yeah.
And even I have a personal story that I won't get into, but masks work. Don't forget that.
Mm-hmm.
Wear a goddamn mask.
Wear a goddamn mask.
I'm not going to force you, but, you know.
Not gonna force you. Well, Joseph Biden is
on federal property.
Get those down.
God forbid.
Somebody take the Biden glasses.
God forbid Biden wants everyone to protect themselves.
You gotta get at least one in every episode, you know. It's important for people to remember their savior,
Joseph Robinette. Oh, did you like the name of that episode, dude? Joseph Robinette Biden's Cabinet Horizon.
That's pretty good.
Robinette Biden Cabinet Come on, man.
Just drop my.
You're watching this pod for a reason.
Yeah, dude, we do watch. We have clever jokes. You know, wordplay.
Get on with it.
Get on with it.
Yeah.